All right, we're good to go?
Okay, well, welcome everybody. I'm happy to announce today that we have a quorum. We actually have a lot more than a quorum. So welcome and thank you for coming, and we will enjoy presenting to you and listening to you if you have questions. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Pastor Brent, who will lead us in an opening prayer.
Thank you, Steve. I'm going to invite everyone to take your little report there and open it up. On the inside of the first page, there is a little liturgy there. We're not going to make Johnson play. Don't worry. We're not going to sing. We'll do that prayer there, and I'm going to invite you to join with me in that prayer there on the left-hand side. For those of you who might be joining us from home, forgive me, we don't have this for you to see, but hopefully you'll be able to hear and follow along with us. So would you please pray with me? Recognizing that our faith is a living, busy, active, and mighty thing, may the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the communion of the Holy Spirit be with each of you.
Also with you.
Teach us to love you with all our heart, our soul, mind, and strength.
Receive our prayer, O God.
Descend on our hearts that we may love others in the way that Jesus loves us.
Receive our prayer, O God.
Empower us to be enthusiastic in pursuing your vision for our congregation.
Receive our prayer, O God.
Move us to engage issues in our community in Christ-like ways and to pursue deep and authentic relationships with those with whom we serve and we partner. Receive our prayer, O God. Strengthen us to face the barriers we encounter in doing your work, learning to work with others amid disagreement. Receive our prayer, O God. Give us the ability to adapt to the cultural, economic, and social changes that occur in the neighborhoods and communities we serve. Receive our prayer, O God. Guide us to be a healthy congregation that learns from its failures as well as its successes and offers wisdom to others. Receive our prayer, O God. My friends, as we strive to become the church that we proclaim to be, raise up leaders who focus on the gospel of freedom, forgiveness, and reconciliation as given to us through God's indescribable act of love in the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Renew us daily in our baptism, that we may discover vitality in our relationships with you, each other, and those we serve in the world. Amen. Steve, if you would.
Thank you. Our first order of business today will be the approval of the minutes from a year ago. And I'm sure you all remember the last year very clearly, but in case you don't, the minutes of the meeting last year are in your pamphlet. And so if you read it, I would entertain a motion to approve. And when you're making motions today, I would ask that you state your name because we are recording. Mary Beth is taking notes. And so it's important that you state your name, both motion and second.
Kelly Wyman moved to accept the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Oh, Wes, I have a question. What is MSB?
Moved, seconded, and passed?
MSP.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the question.
The question was, what is MSP? And I assume it means
Oh,
moved,
motion
seconded,
second,
and
passed, yeah.
Thank you.
If there are no questions, then I will entertain a vote. All those in favor, do so by raising your hand. Opposed, same sign. The minutes passes. They are approved. Now we have the bylaws. The bylaws are in your brochure, and the bylaws were the work of a committee consisting of Kelly Wyman, Amy Davis King, Pastor Brent, Margaret Healy, and me. And we worked for the better part of a year in putting them together. Looks like a fairly simple document, but it wasn't that simple. And in looking at it today, we have a typo in section 8, which talks about the mission plan. And that says, when calling a pastor, we have or and about the mission plan. And I propose just making a change to it being or. And we won't require a motion on that because we haven't passed the bylaws yet. But that'll just be a typo change, no change in substance. Mary Beth has a comment. I knew.
In the page on the scholarship, which I'm not exactly sure what page that's on, I didn't look at that.
Item 10.
Item 10. It indicates a specific dollar amount, and my suggestion would be to remove the dollar amount and allow the scholarship committee, with the approval of the board, to make that what it is, so that if in the future that wants to increase or decrease, it doesn't require a change to the bylaws.
Thank you. If you all understood that, the bylaws specify an amount, $2,000 in this case. And we thought, looking forward, that we may want to have some flexibility in raising the amount, hopefully not decreasing it, but raising it, depending on what the circumstances are. And if this is passed with the 2,000 in the bylaws, it would require a congregational meeting to amend the bylaws. If we write it the way Mary Beth suggested it, we won't need to amend the bylaws. The committee, the scholarship committee, with the approval of the board, will make the recommendation. Now, it's not an amendment to the bylaws, it's a slight change. Are there any comments on that? I'm going to ask for a vote of approval. That's not an amendment. Oh, okay.
Would we be able to set the 2,000 as a minimum instead of being able to go down, only go up from there?
Actually, my thought is if we leave it totally flexible, then heaven forbid we have a bad series of years. We're not obligated to give the 2,000. We can change the amount if necessary, but the overriding idea is to go up from the 2,000.
Steve, just a really fast historical reaction. When we first established and we're doing early management of the scholarship fund, the early view was that the goal was to have at least a $1,000 scholarship. In the years over the last 7 to 8 years, that number as a minimum hope moved to 2,000. Having worked on the bylaws, I kind of like James's question. I would propose that we just add the word minimum in front of 2,000, and that should hopefully satisfy all those discussion points. Thoughts?
We can do that.
Do we know at this time how many people are taking advantage of that?
I believe there were 4 this year. Three this year. And it's for college and any post-high school education that people choose. I'm okay with the minimum 2,000 because we can always come back to the board and change it if we need to, which I don't anticipate doing. But do we feel okay with minimum 2,000? Raise your hand. Anybody not comfortable?
The only question I would have is how are you changing the wording in here in the bylaws?
It would be changed to say scholarships of a minimum of $2,000, and the next paragraph where it talks about the committee and the process would be the committee would recommend to the board both the candidates for scholarship and the amount over $2,000.
So basically, I'm sorry, forgive me. So basically, you're just adding words in consisting of a minimum of $2,000 per year. Just
Right.
that simple addition to the wording in here.
Also granting the committee the chance to go to the board with a recommendation. Paul?
Steve, can you hear me on this?
Barely.
That sounds better. Okay, I think we do need to identify the exact wording that we're going to use in the bylaws and agree on that. I'm not arguing against the motion. I'm just saying we need to come up with the exact wording. And do we want to leave this open-ended where the board will make changes from year to year? Or could make changes from year to year? Because I didn't hear that in the first motion from Mary Beth.
So my thought was that the scholarship committee make a recommendation to the board. And if the board wanted to make it $2,500 for the year, they could, but the following year, if we leave a minimum in, it could be $2,000. Right, but each year, they would make a recommendation.
But that needs to be included in the bylaws.
Right, so.
Okay, so the bylaws will be changed to read in the first paragraph, consisting of a minimum of $2,000 per year. So we would insert the words at a minimum of $2,000 per year. And in the second paragraph, we would add the committee would make recommendations of students approved and the amount for receiving scholarships.
Be approved by the board.
They're going to make a recommendation to the board, which would then be approved by the presentation by the committee. Kelly?
For just keeping this process very simple and not taking an overabundance of time, again, I'm going to recommend we just simply insert the word minimum into line 2 under the first paragraph of scholarship fund. I'll remind us that the way that the fund has been used in the past and has been managed in the past is there is a team that recommends the scholarship amount each year based upon the students that are applying, as well as the fund that is available. So the process as it's been operated under up until now is that group makes a recommendation which is approved by the board. That's not detailed specifically in the bylaws, but it can be specifically detailed in the operations manual when it is developed.
So your suggestion is to just say $2,000 minimum per year?
Minimum preceding 2,000.
Mm-hmm. And not change the other language?
Correct.
I don't need a motion because we haven't approved the bylaws yet, but I would like to have a vote on the language that we just discussed. Kevin?
Yeah, I have a quick question. What are the petards for the scholarship? Does someone have to be full-time? Does someone have to be in state? Or is there any, we used to have at Gloria Day certain requirements to get a scholarship. Is that still in play, or is it now?
Whatever we had at Gloria Day would still be in play unless we change it in the operations manual, which is yet to be developed.
I appreciate the idea of a minimum of 2,000, but what if I want to take just a couple of classes at a community college? It's only going to be about $300. So
No,
I am
do
not available for that
No.
scholarship. It
No.
has to be at least
You
$2,000.
need to be a full-time student to get the scholarship.
So you do have to be a full-time student to be a scholar, to get the scholarship.
Registration of 12 credit hours, and it has to be through the year. So somebody can't apply for a scholarship and then drop out mid-year and think they're gonna keep the full scholarship. You've gotta be, it's a full year, and you have to have 12 credit hours per semester.
And it has to cost at least $2,000.
It would.
Well, I understand, but
The old days, even community colleges, it will.
Any other comments, questions, concerns?
Am I reading this correct, that in the scholarship that we have like 85,000 in there?
Yeah.
And we have 3 students?
It's to last a long time.
Yeah, this is a forever endowment.
Probably increase it then if it's this rate.
But it's 2,000 per year for 4 years. So, yeah, if you figure that out, and the next year we have 5 people, and the next year we have 7 people. Where are they?
Pastor?
If I may. Yeah, part of the discussions we had about the scholarship, right? This was a wonderful gift that was given by a former member of Gloria Day. And at the time, right, that the family's hope was that they would be able to give $1,000 in a scholarship. And their expectation would be that it was a member of the congregation, a student from the congregation, who would be attending full-time college. And so we want to respect that original gift, right? That was her hope. We sort of understood as we went along that $1,000 scholarship in, 1972 was significant. As we got into the 90s and the turn of the century, we realized now $2,000 barely covers books for a semester for students today. And so we wanted to have the flexibility to increase it if we need to. Why that amount? We had lots of discussions. Do we change it, and do we provide one scholarship for one student that could be significant? We could help one student. What about the others? Part-time. You have to draw a line somewhere. And much easier to deal with the universities when you have a scholarship like this, to be able to say, is it a full-time student? They track that. Is this a student who's completed the semester? They track that. The money gets sent directly to the university. They hold it. If the person stops going to college for whatever reason, the university sends it back to us. They can reapply again the next semester or the next year. Why so little? What we've been able to do, because we've only had a few students each year, we haven't necessarily had to eat into the principal, which means that we're able to continue to provide this. Our hope would be, I want to give away 15 every year, right? That would be the wish, that would be the hope. But it's also renewable. So these are students from our congregation who, we hope, would have their books, right? What they need for school provided for them, and it's renewable every year. So for 4 years, right? 2, 4, 6, 8. We're probably talking around $8,000, right? That's not insignificant. Both of my daughters benefited from this scholarship. I know your grandson is. I can't tell you how appreciative that is. I know sometimes for some it sounds like it's not enough. For others it sounds like too much. I promise you, for those who are going through school right now, this is a wonderful gift from a home congregation. I agree with Kelly's verbiage. I think if we simply add a minimum, right? The way that we go about handling this scholarship fund, this is a committee that makes a recommendation. The board votes on it. We don't have to necessarily have that wording in there. That's how it works. What we're really saying is, should it just be $2,000? And I think the answer is no, we should be flexible. Yes, there might be a time when it has to go down. I hope not. At that point, I would say take it to the congregation. So I agree with Kelly. I think if we just insert the word minimum, then we have the verbiage that we need. It allows the scholarship committee to do their work. The board will be able to approve it for whatever students we have. Let's hope more people know about it. They might want to come and be a part of a community that cares for its own, right? That helps provide for its children. So what a wonderful gift. I think, I would agree with Kelly. I think that's probably the best way to word it going forward. I hope does that help clarify some? Okay, good.
Any other comments or questions about that? Then if we have agreement, just please raise your hand and say that's okay. Okay, generally it's okay. So we will make that change, and that will become part of the bylaws that we approve today. Which gets me to the bulk of the issue is we have bylaws in the pamphlet, in the brochure you have. And we sent those out more than 30 days before the meeting, sent them out electronically. We had them available in the church office for people who wanted to come by and read them. We also agreed to mail them in hard copy to people who requested it. So we've made every effort to get the word out, so to speak. So at this point, I will, I'd like a motion, then we're gonna entertain discussion. So let's first have a motion to approve the bylaws.
Hi, I have a general question. I'm not versed in the difference between bylaws and operations manual. So my question might relate more to operations manual. I do not know the difference between the two, and I see no statement in the bylaws about transparency between the congregational board and the congregation. For example, when I read the bylaws, it was news to me that, let's see, there was a committee for the Mission Endowment Fund, there is a committee for the Scholarship Fund, there is a committee for the Mission Study. Unless this stuff is being discussed in the patio after worship, I had no idea that, how do you reach out to the congregation to get the congregation involved? So, like I said, my disclaimer, maybe that's for the operations manual.
Okay, Pastor has a comment.
Yeah, let me speak to that because I've had a big learning curve in the last 3 years. Yeah, as well. Never really had to go through a process of putting together a constitution and then the extension of the constitution, right? Bylaws, and then the extension of that, which is, right, an operations manual. And so last year we passed the Constitution. The Constitution has the pillars, right? The main frame, the structure of how we're going to live together as a community. And in the Constitution, we have some of those checks and balances that you're talking about. We have some of that transparency, right? And those were things we had to talk about. As Lutherans, everything was voted on by the congregation. Everything, right? Presbyterians in the room, you're going to hear a groan here in a second. You have no idea how long our annual meetings went, right? Everything had to be voted on by the congregation. Not so in PCUSA, not so for Presbyterians. And so we had to talk about how do we do that, right? Part of the transparency is that we do this. We share with the congregation, this is our ministry plan, this is our budget for the coming year, right? Part of that being transparent is in the Constitution. Big ways that we promise one another that we're going to live together with both of our denominations. Some of it comes into the bylaws, right? Now to your specific questions. Do we have these committees? Yes. Is anyone on those committees? Not quite yet, right? We have structure. Have we filled in all of it? No, right? In many ways, what we're doing is we're saying, we're going to rip this page. Here's a page from the coloring book. This is the picture that we're going to color. We're all going to agree on the lines. We're all going to agree on this is the picture. It's going to take us a little while to color it in, right? Do we have some folks from Gloria Day who had sat on the scholarship committee before we merged? Yes. Are a couple of them willing to sit on the committee and be willing to talk about? Yes. Did we consult some of those folks this year as we were looking at providing scholarships for students this year? Yes. Yes. Did that all go to the board? Yes. Yes. Our hope is going forward, as those committees start to fill up, as folks become more aware of this shared ministry that we do, that folks will step up and say, I'd like to be a part of that committee. And we would say, thank you, right? I want to help make those recommendations for the students that are in our congregation. So the answer is kind of yes and no. Yes, we have those committees. Are they fully functional? Not quite, right? Same thing with the nominating committee that we're gonna vote on. They understood that they were gonna do a year's worth of work in about 3 months. And then they agreed to stay on for another year, so that now we have a full committee. Same thing with all these other committees. They're just starting to get started. So there will be. Yep, there will be. Yeah, and that usually takes place in the spring. We like to try and get those students who know the following year where they're going to school to let us know. Oh, yeah. Yeah. As those committees start to be formed, now that we've got the bylaws, and now that we're going to start working on the operations manual, right? The operations manual then will say, how do you go about doing it? Right? Constitution says this is who we are. Bylaws help us say how we're going to do it. And then the operation manual will say, these are the specific things you have to do. And so we're kind of, stage 1 is done. We're into stage 2. Still got to do stage 3. Stage 3 is when you start filling up all of those things and people say, I'd like to be a part of that. And you go, please do. And this is how we're going to do it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah, and we're not there yet. And I would say along those same lines, not just these committees, right? I mean, we've got the wonderful rich tradition within the Presbyterian circle of deacons, right? We got to figure out how we're going to get folks re-engaged in the ministry that we're doing together here. That's part of what this year is about. We got to start by having a framework. That's what the bylaws help provide. That help? Good.
Before I take a motion, any other questions, which we can discuss fully after the motion? So is there a motion to approve the bylaws? Lou is a...
Again, Howard and I make a motion that we accept the bylaws as written.
Okay.
With the one change.
Yeah. And,
I second.
okay, name? Kelly?
Just for point of order and clarity, we have 2 small edits to the bylaws as they appear in the annual report. 1, forgive me, I lost my spot here.
Section 8.
All right, section 8, we are striking the word or as a typo. Section 10, we are adding the word minimum. So that motion includes those 2 edits so that we don't have to reproduce this document.
Correct. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion, further discussion on the bylaws? Okay, I'll take a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed, raise your hand. The bylaws pass. I lost my agenda here, so I'm going to go back to the agenda. And I believe that we have to elect the nominating committee, which has served for the end of last year. The committee consists of Ann West, Mark Broadley, and Angie Teagan. So the issue is approving their nomination, and I would take a motion to approve that nomination.
Chris Havlet, make that motion.
Is there a second?
Linda Westland, second.
Okay, any discussion?
I got a question.
Yeah.
I think in the bylaws, it said minimum of 4 people, but I think the pastor is also part of the nominating committee, so that would be the 4?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of the nominating committee, raise your hand. Anyone opposed? Raise your hand. The nominating committee has been selected. Ann, Mark, and Angie. Congratulations. And now we move on to the election of the congregational board members. Paul and I are stepping off the board, as we agreed a year ago. And we have two new people that have been selected by the nominating committee, Sylvia Lortz and Jessica Wernell, to be board members for 3 years. Is there a motion to approve their nomination? Mary Muscade?
Yes.
And second? Karen Perry seconded, okay. Any discussion? Then I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of Sylvia and Jessica being on the board, raise your hands. Any opposed? Raise your hands. Okay, motion passes. We have now financial reports for Gloria Cristi. And that'll
Steve,
be...
if I could just real quick, just want to extend a word of thanks to Ann and to Mark and to Angie for working with me in such short notice to kind of call through our folks and come up with what I think are two excellent new board members for the coming year. So Ann, thank you. I know Angie and Mark was here earlier. They're not here now, but thank you. Thank you for all your hard work. It was a little crazy to try and do that in a 3-month period, especially during the holidays. So much appreciated. Jessica, and I know Sylvia's, I don't know if she's online, but thank you both for your willingness to step up and to serve for all of us. I think you both are going to be wonderful board members. I'm so excited to have you on board. Thank you. Sylvia's not here, but Jessica's there in the back. Wave your hand. There's Jessica. And then, yeah, Sylvia's a member was a member of Palo Cristi, and both she and her husband have been members for a long, long time. I mean, they're pillars within the community. I'm just so excited to have Sylvia on board. I think she's going to be a big asset. We might. So thank you.
Okay, Carrie and Dave. Or Dave and Carrie.
Or Dave and Carrie, the Dave and Pony Show. Hello. My name's Carrie Bethel. I am officially the treasurer of this congregation. Don't get excited. Don't get impressed. It takes a village. If you go past the bylaws to the financial reports, you'll see all these official-looking documents. The Finance Committee for this congregation is chaired by Dave. Stand up so they can see you. And it also has Kevin McAllister, Richard Mueller, Mary Beth, and me. The most important people that are attached to this committee are Ann, our wonderful office personnel, and Kristen. Without them, we would just be out in the parking lot with pencils and paper and trying to do our best. Basically, we meet every single month and we talk about how we're doing financially. We do not leave it. We do not say, oh, it looks good, let's go on. We look at the bad, the good, and everything. You will see almost a synopsis of all of the financial reports for the year at the very end. It's called Footnotes to 2022 Financial Statements. And basically in there is written the most important parts of what everybody needs to know. Again, to let everyone know there is never anything that is secret in the money that you give and the money that this church spends. We don't hide anything. That's not what we do. So anytime you have questions, you can ask anyone on the committee, you can come into the office, you can call us, you can email us, whatever you want to do. basically, we are running on a deficit budget, and that means we don't bring in enough money from your gifts to pay the expenses that we have. We're very fortunate in the fact that we do have savings accounts like you would have in your own home. We're doing the best that we can to stay as close to our projections as possible, and you will see that for last year, even though we thought we were going to have a deficit of $71,000 plus, we only had a $45,000. That's a pretty huge, wonderful thing, joining a congregation, two congregations that never seemed to have enough money or assets for what they were doing. We're doing, and we'll talk about next year's spending plan next. We also have dedicated funds that people give for specific purposes, and that is toward the end of that report, and it's labeled at the top, dedicated accounts. And basically that's if someone gives a gift and says, I only want this to go to the music program. I only want this to go for the Thanksgiving baskets. And then under that, there's memorials. If you want to honor someone who is still here or not here anymore, you maybe give a gift. We will ask you, what would you like that to go for? You will see that there's, at the moment, there are several gifts that we have that we don't have written down. We sort of give that to the pastor to ask, what is the most important thing to you? Is it the youth? Is it music? Is it worship? And those monies then are used for that purpose. Let's just say we don't have enough money in the budget and we need organ music or something like that. We can go to these funds and get it, and that's outside the budget. It's just like tapping into your savings account to get that. We also have 3 separate funds that you alluded to earlier. We have the Lutheran Community Fund, which is utilized for those scholarships. We have the Ministry Endowment Fund, which was used from the proceeds of Gloria Day's property sale, and that is to enhance our programs, basically, that aren't funded through our giving. And then the Campus Endowments Fund was discovered, was great. We found extra money that was donated to Cristi that a lot of people didn't know about. And so that is sitting there as well. We've tried to invest those in funds that will give us interest. You will see that last year was absolutely the worst investment year in modern history. And that's why it looks like we lost money, which everyone did. However, we're very lucky. There are many churches who are living on a shoestring, and they don't have enough money to pay for the electric bill or the water bill, or they have to take up a special election when the AC goes out. And you will see that we've been able to pay for what we need and dream for the future. And that's what, basically, I wanted to cover. Is there anything I left out, Dave?
No, if there's any question on the footnotes, I get to be author of that. If you do, you can still get the questions. You can't. Point behind it.
Hi, I have a question about so the dedicated accounts, there's a spot here for memorials.
Yes.
So if we do have funds that we want to make a memorial for, do we just go to you, or
no? You just give the money in the offering. You put what you want.
Okay.
Or you come into the office, or you mail it to the office, and they make sure that it's where you want to place it.
Okay, because I see there's names here. Is that that's
all of them are people that have passed.
Okay, so then that's what I needed to know. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. Anything else unclear right now? Oh, wow, I'm not used to that. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the financial reports for 2022? Kelly Wyman. He had,
McAllister, second.
okay, it's been moved in second. Any discussion? Do you want to do this? We don't, oh, then, I'm sorry. I need to go back to the bylaws. We don't need your approval. Okay, so we don't need approval. However, it's nice to know that we have support for the process. If you move on to right after those footnotes is the ministry plan for this year, 2023. I don't like to call it a guess for the future. It's a very educated guess by people who pay attention to what we're spending, who look at the reports that are sent out by our insurance companies that we deal with, the electric company, the phone company, the copier, and all of those things are placed in here. I want a reminder to all of you that our pastor has not received a raise, and I don't even remember how long it has been. However, we keep current with their insurance. That is paramount to their family and to us, that we provide that for them. Has anybody seen anything that they want to question in our spending at all? Again, yes, there is a deficit that we are projecting. If we even do a little bit like we did last year, with an entire year to go instead of just half a year, I think we'll be on track to meet our expenses. I wanted to remind you too that we have invested those dedicated accounts and all of the endowment fund, all of those funds, we've invested them and our excess cash so that we earn income off of those, and that income goes into our programs as well. Any questions? Oh, my stars. I'm liking you guys today. Thank you for your support. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is regarding the pastor's compensation package. This kind of takes me back when you think of short-term memory. So I served on the Pathways to Partnership committee that we did the Constitution and blah, blah, blah in a very long time. And I forgot already that one of the differences is at Gloria Day, again, the annual meeting, we approved the budget. Now the budget is approved by the congregational board, does not have to come to the entire congregation. So I had to think, okay, we're doing things a little bit different. And why? Because in the past, if we approved the budget, that had the pastor's compensation package in it. Then it started to click. It's all done at the board level. What happens if the board decided to have a decrease in funding? Well, the Presbyterian, our Paolo Cristi brothers and sisters, look at this annually. As Brent, our current pastor now, as he took his call, this was all accepted as part of his contract. And now we look more at annually approving the compensation package. So when we look, the big thing, and what Carrie has alluded to, I honestly can't remember the last time Brent was given a raise. One of the big parts of his compensation is certainly on benefits, and through the ELCA, Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, we use a company, Portico, for benefit plans, and as his salary, then a lot of things are based on a percentage of that salary, his pension, his disability insurance, his survivor benefit insurance plan for Kristen, et cetera. And so, you know, it's just a little different than we did it in the past and looking at all those numbers. But I can't say when he had a last raise. But if you think of your insurance plans, your premiums are going to go up every year. If you're on Medicare and you have a supplement, each year you go up in age right there, that's generally about a 2% increase. In a year of inflation, and we are given 4 plans that we can recommend on Portico, and it's just like going up the old bronze, silver, gold, platinum. And interesting, out of those 4 plans, only 2 are endorsed by the ELCA, and that was the silver and the gold. So not the top, not the platinum, and not the bronze. So in looking at the 2 plans, and we have been on the Gold Plus plan through the years, I've got to say the total increase this year, including for Brent's year of increase in age, the increase was 2.9%. And I said, in a year of inflation, we got by with keeping a solid package. And no matter which package that we would, quote, say to take, it's his benefits such as his disability insurance, his pension payments, his life insurance for Kristen, those are the same on any of those 4 packages because it's based on his salary. So from that standpoint, so we look at the different packages. We voted to stay on the Gold Plus. It's better than the silver from the standpoint of less potential out-of-pocket expenses for the Maxwell family. Much, much better prescription coverage. The other plan was really more of an HSA type plan, and it wasn't as much. And to go to the gold level from the silver level, total for the year was about $1,400. We said, let's go the better benefit. That basically is his raise, is going up on the 2.9% in his benefits. So I'll just kind of stop there, and I don't know if there's any other questions.
Yeah, I think this is Paul. I think the explanation was very helpful, and I would like to move that we approve the compensation package for Brent that has been submitted by the committee.
Do we have a second out there? Second by Lou. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by raising hand. Any opposed? Thank you.
We now have the ministry reports, and Pastor asked me to go first with mine. And so I will just tell you, my report is actually the last page of the brochure you have. It's in the form of a letter to the congregation, but just briefly, it details a lot of our accomplishments over the last year. And we have done a lot. A lot of it was the administrative work and just combining the 2 congregations into one. We had a mission program that had each month we chose a charity, a nonprofit to support, at least most months, including water collection during the summer. And we partnered with Beth and me, or they partnered with us, to do Thanksgiving boxes for several families, and those were given to families, Family Promise, which distributed them to their families. I've had tremendous support this last year. The congregation has had tremendous support from everyone in the audience and others. And I think we are to congratulate ourselves for what turned out to be a pretty good year. And we look forward to another pretty good year coming up. Although we do have our challenges, we also have tremendous opportunities. So Pastor Brent, would you like to give your mission report?
So you can see there, I've got a picture in my report, and if you remember last year, pretty similar to the one that I had last year. And I'm gonna invite you to get comfortable, right? My report isn't short, right? For a reason. We have done a lot. We have done a lot. Last year I had an image of some hands that were transplanting a small little sapling, right? It looked like a new growth tree. And I had a poem with it. And that poem was entitled Seeds of Hope, which is kind of what we were doing. We were planting seeds of hope in this place, right? With the hope that that transplant would take. Anytime you transplant a new sapling, a new tree, the very first thing you have to worry about is whether or not this new sapling, the roots are going to take. Will they survive in this new soil, in this new place? That was our hope last year. We had a brand new constitution that we voted on. We finally had a structure in place. Pastor Linda had just retired, right? She went with our thanks, our blessings. We knew that we were here. We are Gloria, Cristi, Federated Church now. And so our hope last year was that these seeds of hope would take. Now you'll see this year, I have a picture of a tree. It's a little bit more grown, isn't it? The transplant is taken. And I've got a different quote there from a German theologian. No longer thinking about seeds of hope, but how does this place, right? How do we become a people of hope? Once the roots have taken, that's it? We're done? No, a new tree has to be supported, right? If you've ever put in a new tree, especially if you have a new tree and we're coming into the summer and then we're coming into monsoon time, you got to put in some supports, right? In case that wind gets going. You got to make sure during the summer it gets enough water. There is still work for us to do. And so this year we're voting on bylaws. We're sort of further clarifying how we're going to do this ministry together, and that's where we are. And Carrie's right. This ministry plan that we have, it's a plan, right? It's not just a guess. It's a very good and educated guess, but it's a hope. It's a guess. I can't tell you how pleased the board was after we did our best to guess what this first year might look like. And again, we were being conservative. We wanted to be careful. $71,000 deficit budget. We thought, oof. Rarely is a church comfortable, right, passing a plan like that with a budget like that. And yet, we were off, right? We were off. It ended up being in the 40s. Now we're looking in the 40s, 50s. If things hold true, it might be less than that. That is reason to hope. We weren't sure whether or not this transplant would take. It's taken. It's taken. As I shared in my sermon today, these don't happen very often. Both in my meetings at the Synod and my meetings at the Presbytery, folks have come up and said, how'd you do it? And I laugh. God willing, right? This is what we say in ordination. All right, I asked God to help and guide me. Certainly that was the case. And so here we are. We're in a place now where we have to think about how are we going to provide for this new tree, this sapling that has taken root, this new community that we have created together. What things need to be done next. And to Louise's point, right, this is where we start to color in the lines. This is where we start to talk about how. How are we going to provide for this new tree? How are we going to support it? How are we going to nurture it? Because the hope is what? That it's going to bear good fruit. That's what God wants from us. We hope that this new community is going to be salt and light for the world, because that's what we are. Now, how do we go about that? This is always the challenge. Because I will tell you, the leaders, those of us who sat and we talked about this, those who dreamed and were willing to risk, right? Willing to dare. 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago. Our intention, both at Gloria Day and here at Palo Christi, was not that we would simply come together, pool our resources so that we could continue doing what we were doing before. We'll just be able to do it a little bit longer. That's not why we did this. We set up this ministry endowment fund specifically so that we couldn't use it for maintenance. We couldn't use it for the campus. We couldn't use it for salaries. It can only be used to do ministry. That's being faithful. And here we are. Our sapling has taken root. I don't know any pastor coming out of seminary, I don't know any pastor that would be looking for a new call who wouldn't look at this place and say, you ever run 5 acres along Lincoln in the Phoenix metro area and your property's paid off? You don't have a mortgage? Wait, you got a scholarship fund? A little over 80 grand in there? You can give $2,000 scholarships to students from your congregation? You've got an endowment fund right around, 1.2, right around there, million. Thank you, market. It was a little more when we started, but with the long-term goal of being there for years to come so that we can draw from it and do wonderful ministry. Wow. You got partnerships with several outside groups, AA and others, that come in and utilize the campus. We're having really interesting conversations with other nonprofits, right? Groups that we've been in contact with in the past, Family Promise, but that maybe we didn't take the time to sit down and say with them, how can we help you? What are you struggling with? What kinds of things could we do together? And that is starting to happen. As I shared with the board and I've shared with several others, I had a vision in my head of how we could help provide for these families, right, that are being served by Family Promise. Because I heard the folks at Palo Christi and even, some of the folks at Gloria Day who said we partnered together, we would bring food up and they would house, families during the year, and they do it 2, 3 times, maybe 4 times a year. And I thought we've got to get to a point where we can do more than that. And I know it's been a long 3 years. I know there are folks that are thinking, well, they forgot all about that. That's not important. They don't care. Oh, I promise you, we have not forgotten. It's a lot of work to reframe a house. It's a lot of work to transplant, right, a new tree. My hope, my vision was to utilize these 2 rooms to reshape them. We've got plumbing that goes into one of these rooms. We could put little showers, a sink, right? We could create 2 dedicated spaces for families. I thought, what a brilliant idea. We don't need to worry about whether other spaces are being used and whether or not we're going to be stepping on toes. We could create dedicated space, safe space for these families, and we could do it more than just a couple times a year. I thought, boy, what a great idea. So I went and talked with the folks at Family Promise. I went and talked with Ted, right? Ted Taylor, the CEO, he runs it. I brought him over. I said, what if we created a space like this? How would that work for your ministry? Would that help? I thought he would be super excited about that. I was really excited to kind of show us off, right? And as I'm explaining it to him and talking with him and saying, how would this work? I could see that he was struggling. He didn't seem like he was all that interested. And I got a little worried. I looked at him. I said, everything okay? He said, no. I said, no, this is fine. He goes, yeah, this would work great. He goes, I have other problems. So I said, please do tell. I'm not married to this. I thought this would be helpful to your ministry. He said, we've got other things that we're trying to do. We're trying to create a day center. These families that we're dealing with, some of them have older members of their family that aren't working. Some of them have younger kids, right, who aren't in school age yet. We've got to have a space for them while their families are working through our program. And so we need a day center. We don't know how we're going to do that quite yet. That's one of the things we're struggling with. And he said, that this could work. I looked at him, I said, stop. Walk with me. We walked around the campus to the back side, and he said, what's this? I said, we used to have a preschool here. What about this space? And he looked shocked. He said, "Are you kidding me?" I said, "No." So what about this space? We spent the next 2.5 hours talking about what could be. One of his biggest questions of me, of us, any good nonprofit, right, is going to ask this question, especially of churches in today's day and age. What kind of headaches am I going to get in if I partner with you in this ministry? What are you hoping to get out of it? Gosh, that sounds strangely familiar to what we talked about today and what we heard in our scriptures, doesn't it? What do you hope to get out of it? I know what he usually hears. I know what pastors usually tell folks in nonprofits. How am I going to be able to use your nonprofit to evangelize? Can I give you material? Can we invite people to come and be a part of my church? He looked at me and said, "What do you want out of it?" And I looked at him, I smiled, and I said, "Nothing." He said, "Nothing?" I said, "Ted, this space, this holy ground is a place where ministry is supposed to be happening. And it did for a long time very well. It's not right now. It needs to be doing more. What do I want? I want good ministry to be happening on this campus. I don't care if people join or not. I know finance people as a pastor, it makes you a little nervous. I don't care if we get giving units or not, because I don't believe people that are created in the image of God are just simply giving units. I believe when you're doing good ministry, people want to be a part of it. So I looked at him, I said, "You can't tell me that your staff, if they were to come here and do this, that some of them wouldn't say, 'Gosh, I really like that this church is allowing this to happen here. I really like that they support this kind of ministry. Maybe I'll come and see what it's about.' You can't tell me that maybe one of those families might say, 'Gosh, I can't believe this place supported us. Maybe we'll come back.' You can't tell me that people out in the community won't see what we're doing and say, 'I want to be a part of that.' I trust the Spirit will move people. I want good ministry taking place on this campus. We have rooms and buildings that aren't being used. They should be. We're supposed to wear out the building. We're supposed to wear out the carpet. We're supposed to do those things." And he got this huge smile on his face. He said, "You don't sound like all these other pastors that I usually talk to." And I laughed. I said, "I know." He said, "You know, it comes with problems. Cities like to cause issues. Rezoning. What kind of ceilings do you have, right? Have any asbestos in there?" He said, "It might come to a fight." I said, "Do I look like somebody who shies away from those arguments and those fights?" And he laughed. He said, "No, you do not." These are the conversations that we need to have. These are the opportunities that we're going to have going forward to color in the lines. Had a wonderful conversation with Jessica. So glad she's going to be on our board. She helped with the transition team. She was a part of trying to make sense of how we'd have this joint new constitution. And we were talking. She said, "My boys are coming for the gift program. We're doing a Saturday morning. We're doing these really fun things. They're kind of exciting and they're kind of fun, but aren't there more kids? How can we get more kids to be here, right? Right, Bev? How do we do that?" And I laughed. I said, "I hear your frustration. I feel your frustration, Jess." She said, "Are there people we could call?" I said, "The folks who have been a part of both our communities, they know where we are. We're sending out hundreds of emails every week, so it's not like people don't know who we are, where we are, and what we're doing. But the day and age of, I'm going to go to work and invite my coworker, the day and age I'm going to go next door, knock on the door and invite my neighbor, the day and age of I'm just going to talk to families of fellow students of my kids, those days are done. It's not how evangelism is done anymore. I hate to break it to some of you. That's the reality. And I'm not asking your opinion. I'm telling you, because I've talked with 20-year-olds. I've talked with 30-year-olds. That's the reality of the world we live in today. Jessica will confirm it. She told me, she said, Jack and John, they've got friends at school. And so I reached out to some of their friends and their families. And I said, "We're doing this thing at church." And she goes, that was about as far as the conversation went. They just turn and run the other way. When we talk about living in divisive times, you have no idea. Talk to 20-year-olds. Talk to 30-year-olds. They'll tell you how divided our country is. Her worry wasn't just that they're not going to come to this event. Her worry was they might not talk to her and her husband and their kids again. Not how the Christian church got started. They will know we are Christians by our by our love. Boy, we better start loving again. We start asking people questions, they start running the other way. Now that sounds dark, that sounds dismal, that sounds dreary. And she kind of gave this really rough sigh. And she said, what are we going to do? I laughed. I said, I can't help but think that we might have to go back to doing what the early church did. Anybody know? How did evangelism start? What did Jesus do? What did Jesus encourage his fellows to do? Did Jesus show up in the temple, build a new temple maybe, and say, if I build it, they will come? He went to where they were. And he told his followers, go out 2 by 2, take nothing with you. You're going to have to depend on what's out there. You're going to have to depend on the goodwill and the Spirit being moved among the people that you're going to. What would it look like, I said to Jess, if members of our congregation came to one of your boys' events? It's not the first time we've talked about this, but we got to do it. And every time I've had the opportunity to do it, it's strengthened the relationships, the bounds, right, that we share. It would bind our relationship closer. I remember going to Max's soccer games, sitting with his father, sitting with his mother. Because we live in a world where they're not here this morning. My girls aren't here this morning. Now, we can be disheartened by that, or what we can say is there are opportunities to engage people in God's love and God's grace in new ways in the world. That's what we have to be about this coming year. We've transplanted the tree. It's here. It took root. This will work. We've got to have some smart people in the room, right? I'm not a finance person. I'm not a math person. I'm not really good with numbers. But I do know that when you have a $40 to $50 deficit budget and you have $500,000 in reserves in the bank, you ain't hurting. Now, I don't know a church that has $500,000 in the bank that they're investing wisely, because we've got very good financial minds that are very faithful here, that have an endowment that they can draw from and a scholarship that are only worshiping 35 to 40 people a week. There have got to be people around, right, this country and the church. How are you guys doing this? The answer is we're trusting each other. We're trusting the Spirit. Now, if we just use up those reserves, if we just keep having deficit budgets, if we don't engage ourselves and the world around us in new ways, in 3 years and 4 years, we're going to be right back where we were. But I will tell you, we transplanted the community. The roots have taken. This will work. Amen. Do you want it to? Do you want it to? This is the year that we have to sit down and say, how are you going to share and be a part of this? Where do you want to volunteer? What moves you? Where do you feel the Spirit guiding you? And let's start having those conversations. Now, that might be hard, because it might mean we're not ever going to get back to the point where we have 200 people in worship again. That's okay. What you need to say is, when I come to worship, if this is important to me, do I feel it? Do I feel it? Do I feel like there's a place for me to contribute, to come and be a part of worship? And not just receive something, but be involved in it. Worship is, right, reciprocal. We do it together. And if that's 20 people, if that's 30 people, great, as long as we're doing it well. We have to do equally well opportunities to go out in the community and serve. We have to do equally well opportunities to help people grow and learn in their faith. Can we do that? Yes. Yes. We need to have hybrid and online learning opportunities. That's got to start this year. We've got to have serving opportunities. And yes, we tried to do one every month. And what I started to realize as we were talking with the board is that might be too much. We've got folks on fixed incomes, and it always feels hard if we're doing a new service project every month. Well, I've got to give to that, and I've got to give to that. I'd challenge you to go back and look, right? There's the pledge that you made, and then there's how much more you gave on top of that, and then you'd be impressed with yourself. You should be. I'm impressed with you. We gave stable giving in this congregation throughout the whole year. That's how we were able to, right, cut that huge chunk of that deficit. We can do the same again this year. But we have to challenge ourselves to say, how are we going to do this? And not just how, but what are we going to need? As we leave this meeting today, I want you to think about where's the Spirit moving me? Where can I make a difference? And don't wait for the church to create that opportunity for you. Don't wait for me or the board or the office to send out something that fits you perfectly. Come and talk with us. Let's figure out how we can do this together. Because it's going to take some changes. We're going to have to do some things differently. We might have to go about doing Sunday school differently. It might be we have to go out and just be Christ-like. Be gracious. We got to change the way that we are viewed in the world. And here's a little hope. We got a wonderful card in the mail. It was dropped off in our mailbox. Came to us just about Christmas time. I've kept it. I'm holding on to this one, right? Because at a time when I was struggling, I opened it up. It was a thank you card. It was a thank you card from our local area hikers. See, what some of you don't know is that your pastor for the past year and a half, every time he's here, every time he pulls in and leaves, if he sees someone driving up, he would stop and have a conversation with them. Find out why they were here. And that conversation almost always started with, I'm sorry, am I allowed to be here? I would chuckle. I would say, you're absolutely allowed to be here. In fact, we're glad that you're here. Here's what we're thinking about doing. These are our hopes for this place. We'd like to move the labyrinth and put in a little trail through the front of our property. We'd love to put up a sign that says, area hikers, welcome to your base camp. We need to have a sign that says, like a QR code that says, here's how you can contribute to the things that we do and the ministry partners that we have. We need a new drinking fountain that has a bottle refill station in it. I can't tell you how many people hike through here, walk through here, bike through here. They would appreciate that. And as I share these things with them, you know what they say? Oh my gosh, yeah, how can we help with that? I haven't lost faith in humanity. I haven't lost faith in grace or in God. The Spirit is moving, people. We just got to go out, 2 by 2 if necessary, and to be dependent on the Spirit of God that is still moving in the community. Because when you're open and when you share that vision, when you share that light, all of a sudden, they sent us a card. Not just a card. Got a check in it. $150. They took up a collection. The few of them that started talking. They see us. They know we're here. That's going to change the way that church is seen. We've got to figure out, how can we partner with community? How can we partner with the needs of the world? And the world will appreciate it because the world's hungry for it. They are. Now, I'm also not naive. We got to transplant something, that's one thing. Nurture it, sustain it, and get it to grow is another. Sometimes that takes different skills. Sometimes that takes different resources. So there might need to be changes. And I'm aware of that. I'm aware of that. We need to look at what resources we need, what kind of programs we can do. Those are all the things we're going to talk about this year, but we also need to look at what kind of leadership needs do we have. Because we know, don't think for a second that I don't know. Been a little rough, hasn't it? We've taken on this huge endeavor, and yet we always sort of feel like it should go smoothly. Has it gone smoothly? No. Christmas Eve did not go smoothly. Trust me, I'm aware of it. Do I know that what might be needed for the ministry going forward might not be able to be provided by me? Yes. Yes, but we have to ask that question. This is going to be the year where we have to do that. We have to start coloring in the lines. We have to start nurturing the tree. Because, my friends, this place will grow good fruit. Thanks be to God. I look forward to doing all of that with this new board and with all of you this year. Thank you for listening to a whole different sermon, but I hope that gives you an idea of where we are right now in our ministry. Any thoughts, questions, or concerns? I always like to ask that question. Paul, please.
A point of order.
Please.
We are just concluding the annual meeting for the congregation, and I believe the Corporation Commission requires that we have an annual meeting of the corporation. That's not on the agenda, but with your permission, I think I might be able to facilitate that and take more than 5 minutes.
If you would, yeah, I would appreciate that. I would appreciate that. Before we do that, any questions of me? Any questions of my report? You can see there, we've done some weddings. We've certainly had some folks that we've lost this year that we miss. But we're continuing to be God's people in this place, and I thank you for that. I look forward to working through all of this with you this year. Blessings.
Can I just say thank you for what you brought to this place?
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
really appreciate that, and I appreciate the vision that he has provided for us. It's just amazing, and I want to thank you.
It has been and continues to be my privilege. So thank you for that. And please, don't forget about Pastor Linda, right? She walked a good bit of this with us. But thank you. My family thanks you. As you've heard, Dave made the comment. I can't remember the last time we got it right. I really haven't. When I started, I was at the high end of the scale, right? And I felt blessed. I was embarrassed because that was too much when I started. Now I'm working my way right at my age down to... You've always provided for me. You've always provided for my family. You've always provided really good health care, and I appreciate that so much. That's why I've stayed. The ministry has been worthwhile. I look forward to continuing it this year. We'll see what comes. But thank you.
Okay, thank you. Again, this is a housekeeping, bookkeeping situation. We are required by the State Board Corporation Commission to have an annual meeting of the corporation. That is not on the agenda. I'm asking your permission to have it put on the agenda. Do I have your permission? Okay. Now, first thing I need to do, and Beth, please keep these minutes separate. I need to ask for a motion to suspend the congregational meeting in order to convene the corporation meeting. Have a motion? Do I have a second? Oh, that was... yeah, okay. Do I have a second? Oh, Mary seconded it? Okay, the annual meeting of the corporation then is hereby called to order. And we have already had a budget report and a ministry report of the, of the congregation, which will accommodate the requirement for the Corporation Commission's report to the congregation, to the corporation. We have elected new members of the board. Those members will be taking their posts with the next meeting of the corporation, and at that time, Steve, if I may, they will elect the new president and vice president, secretary and treasurer of the corporation, and report back to the congregation. Is there any other business that needs to be brought before the corporation at this time? Steve? Okay, hearing none, then I will entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting of the corporation and reconvene a meeting of the congregation. Is there a motion to that effect? So moved. I have a motion from Steve to approve it. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Chris seconded the motion. Any discussion on that? Let me call for a vote then. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion is carried. Brent, let me turn it back over to you for concluding remarks, if you have any more.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I think I'm done. I'm going to turn this back over to Steve.
We do have to elect 2 members of the congregation to go to the ELCA assembly. And Pastor was going to do this, but I will do it. Do we have any volunteers, actually, that would like to go to the ELCA assembly, which is in June in Oro Valley, Colorado, Arizona? I used to be in Colorado. but it's in Oro Valley, and expenses will be paid by the church. So are there any volunteers? Mary Beth is one. I need one more, preferably a male. And Kent Poppy will be the second. Thank you very much. The presbytery meetings require ruling elders to be participants. So the board will select those representatives from the elders, which are the board members. I would also like to say that I would like to have the remaining board members and the new board members gather up front here after the meeting for the purpose of electing officers for the coming year. So if you could do that, I would appreciate it. I won't be part of that meeting because Paul and I are done. Pastor Brent, have you got a closing prayer for us?
I think I can probably manage that. Well, dear friends, let's pray. Gracious God, we are so thankful, so blessed to have this place, this space that you promised to meet us in. Help us to recognize and to embrace your presence. Help us to recognize and embrace your love, and then help us to go out and share it, right, in the world, in Jesus' name. We spent this time today thinking about how we might do that. And so we ask that your Spirit to comfort and guide and inspire us as we go on our way. Keep us safe, keep us happy, keep us healthy, keep us holy. In your Son's name, amen. Thank you all.
Before I leave, I was going to say something about Johnson, but I don't see him here anymore. Oh, no, I don't see Johnson.
He's outside.
I think he's still here, yeah.
Is he still here? Okay. I just wanted to recognize him. He came on after we lost our music director, and he has done a wonderful job of playing the organ, the piano. He even wrote a hymn and performed it for us during a service. So,
hold on with your applause. Let's embarrass him a little bit, right, when he comes in here, because what a gift he's been. And that was his first song he's ever written, and believe it or not, he's got another one that's coming during Lent. So here he is.
I give you Johnson Giacomo.
Steve wanted to embarrass you a little bit because everybody wanted to know what a gift you've been to this community. And you and I have talked about this, right? I prayed when we knew Karen was leaving. I prayed. You got to be careful when you pray to God, right? I said, you got to help us, right? We're trying to get this done. You got to help us. And so I got this name, and I'm embarrassed because when I got your name first, I thought you were maybe a TA at ASU, and I thought maybe you were in the music department. And so the first time we talked, I was giving him all this information about how we needed somebody to come and play music for our congregation. I was hoping that he'd be able to sort of get it out to some students, and maybe we could find somebody. And he was so kind. He was so gracious. And as I play the conversation back now, I know that he was a little confused. And so the second conversation that we had, when I asked him how it was going, if anybody was interested, he said, no, I'm trying to figure out, where I should get that, but, I'm kind of interested. And I went, what? And suddenly I realized, he wasn't just sort of an intermediary. He was actually a candidate. And so we sat down and we started talking, and it took all of about 10 seconds, and I went, you're supposed to be here. You're supposed to be with us. And what a gift you've been. What a blessing you've been. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say that, being here as an international student, and I never thought that I would get a car, I'd get a place to go to, play music, and hang out with all of you. This is like a second family to me, so thank you so much for having me here.
Well, I know we figured out a way to work out some fair compensation, and I know your hope is to be here with us for the next several years. So we're so thankful, we're so blessed. Don't get too excited about the truck. It's been a little bit of a headache for you and I, haven't. We had fun last week. For those of you who don't know, the battery went out. So we spent a good chunk of last Sunday together, making sure my truck would still run for him. So what a gift you've been. We're so blessed to have you here. Thank you, brother. Thank you, Steve.
Is there any other business to bring before this group? If not, then I will say we are dismissed. And have a great day.